Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for the purpose of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe on copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107.
O Yahweh, open up you my lips, and let my mouth show forth your praise. Kuma, Yahweh, Wayaputso o Yaveka, Wayanuso misanecha mipanecha. Kuma, Yahweh, Wayaputso o Yaveka, Wayanuso misanecha mipanecha. Arise of you, O Yahweh. Let your enemies be scattered, and let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Let all of Yasharah, Yisrael, who love, worship, and praise Yahweh, give him thanks by saying Hallelujah.
Welcome to Into All Truth, and I just pray the Ruach Kodesh will lead you into all truth and show you things to come, that the seed of the word will be planted in your heart to bring forth fruit unto righteousness. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach Amunah. So fam, I don't know what people were expecting in the eclipse. And, I did an eclipse prayer here on TikTok, and I did one on my YouTube as well. And I didn't get the sense that anything crazy was going to happen. I kind of wanted to get go out into the country or something to go through it and stuff. But everything was telling me, no, nothing's going to happen. And that because Yah says these things are for signs. But the reason why I'm raising it is because, it was a spiritual shift. And if you're like me, you would have sensed it happening actually the day before, the night before. Actually, I was sensing like a shift. And I started fasting the day of the eclipse. I fasted until about 3 or 4. I just did like a partial fast, and then I'm continuing in a fast. So for anybody continuing in the fast. And so I'm going to be fasting at least once a week and trying to do some prayer. So just send me comments in this video if you want me to do more of the live prayer. I would like to see a lot of feedback on that. But we have Shavuot coming up, and so I am trying to fast at least 1 to 3 days a week over the next, 7 weeks or 6 weeks now until Shavuot to see what the Ruach HaKodesh does, because I am really experiencing a real shift and transformation since the eclipse. One of the things that's really coming to me was just, I was like, we're going to just look at the New Testament and changing your character. And as the eclipse was happening, I called a friend who was right under the eclipse, and she was like, we were both like, are you feeling this shift? And she was like, yeah, we were both like, we're feeling a shift. And so what it is it's a spiritual shift that's taking place in the 1/3 remnant, the children of Israel, the 144, and the Gentiles grafted in. And it is not, it's also the calm before the storm, because they are setting up all this stuff, but Yah is setting up to bring us out of the captivity. But to get through it, we have to go through this shift. So I'm going to be doing a lot of praying. I know TikTok is going to be canceled in September, but I'm going to keep praying on my channel and here on TikTok as the Spirit leads. And for me, I am doing a lot of internal work. Yah was just showing me, he was like, you know, you gotta pull it up. You know, it was just like, I read some scriptures. I was reading through Peter, and I think it was into John, and I was just looking at myself, and I was devastated, and I was just like, wow, I need to really temperance and walking in the Spirit. And, you know, I just don't really care about what's going on. It's kind of not the time anymore for me to chasten, rebuke, that stuff. It's just going to be about internal work, walking in the Spirit and studying the Word that way. And that's kind of where everybody's got to be at this point. Just studying. It's going to be in the New Testament. You know, obviously it's all also in the Old, but now is the time that our character has to really come up. And I just feel, for me, like I've got such a long way to go. Just reading these scriptures, I was just, yeah. At this point, it's, you know, time for eternal work, eternal work, and relationships and stuff like that. So I think that's the focus, really should be. Everybody's focus at this time is working on your character and not just being a called out one, but a chosen one. The person that I had to become that wasn't necessarily me in order to endure these trials is not the person that I'm going to be going forwards and going into the kingdom. That person has to die. That old man, old woman has to die. And so now I have to be, and I know in Yahusha, in the Spirit, that I can be the new person. And that's I think a lot of Hebrews are going to find, as you walk in the Spirit, pursue Yah, if you're obedient and humble and tempered, you will have that peace and you will become that new person. Appointed time we have coming up is Shavuot. And so we're counting down to that, the 49 days, because that is the release, the Jubilee, and that's when the Ruach HaKodesh comes down. And so we want to walk in the Spirit so that when we meet Shavuot, which was celebrated on the second day of creation, when Yahuwah created light, when Yahusha came forth in light, and Shavuot was celebrated, which is called so-called Pentecost. And so I just feel led to do a season of walking in the Spirit. Like, honestly, I just feel like I keep saying to Yah, I just want to get away from social media. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to work on my character and work on my spiritual life, my walk with Yahuwah in real time with real people. And who knows, he might just do that, but I probably won't be doing any more long teaching videos, just maybe Torah teaching, appointed times, and a lot of New Testament stuff on walking in the Spirit. And I just don't want to have anything to do with the outside world media face. I just want to be focused on Yah and the real world and the here and now. So, and I think that that's what most of the Hebrews have to do, is get in the real and the truth and the natural. So when this media goes down, you will be walking in the Spirit and the Spirit will guide you. So the shift has already taken place. I could feel it and I'm still feeling it right now. And there's a real peace and in obedience to the word. And so I just pray, family, that you will walk in that as well. In Yahushua HaMashiach, Baruch, fam. Shalom.
Yo, the weirdest thing just happened. I just saw the weirdest thing happen during the eclipse today, April 8, 2024. And I'm watching it, checking it out. And I'm a little pissed off because the clouds, whatever, but it's not a big deal. But I'm watching it and I'm looking, and I want y'all to pay attention to the sun right there, right? I know it's hard to see, but look right below it in about a second. Right below it, on to the left a little bit, right there. It looks like there's another sun. It looks like two eclipses. Now, I was watching it thinking like, oh, maybe something wrong with my eyes because I'm looking directly at it and I'm fucked my shit up. But I don't know. I recorded it and I'm rewatching the recording as I'm doing this voiceover. And I want you to let me know, like, did y'all see two? Or go back and rewatch that spot and tell me if you saw two, because I need that to register in my head why there was two suns in the sky for a moment.
So a lot of people after the eclipse were saying they're seeing, triple moons or triple suns. And of course, we know the Chinese already created an additional sun because obviously, in my opinion, they're going to try to hide the fact that the sun is turning black, getting darker. All right. The other thing is that, remember, it was a new moon 10 days before the first day of the year, and then there was a black moon in the first month of Abib, a Baal moon during the eclipse. However, it is 10 days ahead of the sun because, remember, it comes in 10 days too soon. So here's some information that might help you to understand what is happening in the firmament when you're seeing multiple suns, or you may be seeing multiple moons eclipsing the sun. Remember,
What's up, man? What's up, everybody? TikTok family, what's up? Check this out. I just went out the door and I just turned around. I looked up and I see the sun. Look how huge it is.
Remember, there's numerous gates that the sun moves through, and the reason why they were shooting rockets at the eclipse was because I believe gateways open at this particular time. Now, people theorize the black sun is passing by. I'm not exactly sure how the gates work entirely, but I do believe the sun and the moon are projections of the light of Yahusha, the light of heaven. And so this explanation may help you to answer more questions. This is what I was saying to various people. But the main thing I have to say here is that as the sun is beginning to darken, turn black, we're able to see into heaven. There's also a war in heaven. So now we're starting to see the light actually piercing through from the heavens to light the source light, to light the Mur, M-A-U-R, that is reflected light of the sun or moon that is coming from the heavens, the source light. So we may be also during an eclipse able to see into the place of the source light more. And so you're seeing these multiple reflections. And so this is my theory on why you're seeing these multiple suns or multiple moons, because just like if you shone a flashlight, a pin flashlight through a wine glass, turn it upside down, or a cup, you're going to see all of these multiple reflections of light through the glass. All right. And that depends on how bright the light is outside of the glass versus inside of the glass and its refraction around. And because the firmament is curved, you're going to get these rings around light, whatever light you're looking at, whether it's the sun or the moon at this particular time. So let's get into it.
One of the first things you really have to understand everything else is what Dave's going to talk about here. And it has to do with seeing the actual sun versus seeing the projection of the sun and living in an enclosed system. Follow along.
This is an actual eclipse. I filmed it. There happened to be a lot of haziness in the sky, so it was really easy to film without any glare. And this is an eclipse that's going on. It went to like 85%, right? This is a model eclipse where I have a light on the other side, and I'm projecting it, and I'm blocking the light with a round object. And I'll show you how that's done in a second, right? So this is the eclipse that was filmed prior to that, and we saw this. What is this? it's locked to position with the sun. This is a lens flare. It's moving around as we move the camera. But this is staying in perfect sync with the sun. Now, this was happening. There was like a 90% eclipse at this time. The reason you don't see it here is just because it's so bright. But if you look with sunglasses, you would see that this eclipse is just about that much. But what is this eclipse here? And if it was a lens flare, it would be moving around, but it's not. So I say that the sun that we see is not the actual source of the sun. It's a projection. It's like we're seeing a rear projection on our sky screen. Just like my experiment here. The paper towel is the sky screen. And I have the rear projector, which is here. This is the source of the sun. And I'm eclipsing it with a dark body. Now, I don't see that dark body coming in here. I only see the missing sun. I don't see that dark body because there's no light coming off of that dark body. It's just blocking the light. I don't see it. I don't see it exit. And so I did it again with a thinner tissue. And as I bring it in, we see it right here. There's the source. I'm seeing through the sheet. I'm not being blinded by the bright sun. And I'm blocking the source. And that's exactly what we see. And when we compare it to what reality actually showed us, it looks pretty damn close.
Okay, to demonstrate this further, first you need to realize that we live in an enclosed system. Okay, there's a firmament above, and whether that is frozen oxygen, a toroidal field, energy system, or like literal glass, I don't know. But we live in an enclosed system. And here it would be the sun that we see. Now that is not the source. That is the sun that we see being projected from my iPhone back here. Now, if this was 1,000,000 times brighter, this turtle would not be able to see the sun or the source, just like Dave is trying to say in his video. And I tried to demonstrate this just a little bit. When you get the right angle, you see I've got a flashlight and then a light behind it. And when it's bright enough, you don't see the light. All right, here's a video where this guy captures what he thought was an extra planet or an extra star or planet Nibiru. But what we see is this is just the sun, okay? The sun we see every day. And it happens to be at an angle where it's not whitewashing the rest of the sky. And like Dave showed, in the right conditions, when the sun isn't just completely washing everything away where you can't see it, this is the source. Beyond the firmament, you are seeing what the actual sun is. Now, I don't claim to know what that is. That could be a giant holding a flashlight for all I know. In my opinion, it's something created by God, but I don't claim to know. All right, here's the same scenario where someone thought they were capturing multiple moons, but it's not. It's all the same source. But since we lived in an enclosed system, sometimes you can literally see a reflection of that enclosed system. So let me show you a beautiful demonstration by my friend here. All right, once you come to terms with the fact that you live in an enclosed system and there's actually a firmament above, all this stuff makes so much more sense than trying to wrap your heads around it, believing in the heliocentric model. So let's check this out. He does an amazing job literally making this make perfect sense. And it's not multiple moons. It's just a reflection in the firmament. And sometimes when the conditions are right, and the lighting is right, and the angle is right, you see multiple of them. Check this out. One light source, i.e. the candle. The firmament has multiple layers, as discussed in the Bible. And here we go. It's that simple. That simple. All right, let's move to the eclipse. Now, I don't claim to know exactly what is going to be blocking the sunlight, but I do claim to know that this time around, it's not the moon, okay? It's just impossible with the alignment of the sun and the moon for it to be a solar eclipse in the moon blocking out the sun, and I'll show you. Okay, so I follow this literally every day, and it's always right, and it still is. And you can see as it approaches April 6th, 7th, and 8th, the moon is not going to be in alignment. It's going to be next to it, but not covering it. Just so you can get a still shot look. April 8th, and then the moon and the sun, they're next to each other. Not in alignment. Okay, so if it's not the moon, what is it? Well, there's a lot of talk in different realms of life, some of them secret societies that talk about a black hole sun. They just happen to have a song by Soundgarden called The Black Hole Sun. And there's also talks of portals. Portals in the Bible, or not the Bible, but the Book of Enoch. Like I said, the Book of Enoch talks about portals and how the sun moves through portals. And the Book of Enoch should be in the Bible, but in my opinion was probably taken out. So we don't know when we are, or where we are, or what we are, or how things work, or what stars are. It's literally to keep us confused. But maybe the sun is just going into a portal during this next coming eclipse and then coming out. And speaking of that black hole sun and that song Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden, there just happens to be a lot of weird imagery with that video and the black hole sun, and they just happen to be doing some demon face disclosure in the news lately where they say, don't worry, if you see faces that look just like that, you're just suffering from a condition called demon face syndrome. And, well, in my opinion, you're not suffering from a condition. Maybe this eclipse is just letting you see through the veil.
So family, I did this study for myself. I was like, you know what? I'm always studying all kinds of things. And since the eclipse, the eve of the eclipse, the day of the eclipse, I was feeling like I was being changed and transformed. Something shifted for me. And so, and also some of my, brothers and sisters felt the same thing. And Yah has been sort of leading me to go into, for a while actually, but really now to just go into the New Testament. So as I research anything, I had to research how to be tough and tender, because this is my greatest struggle. I really struggle with being very sensitive because I'm spiritually sensitive, but I can't be thin-skinned. I want to be thick-skinned. So it was like, how am I going to be tough and tender in this tribulation? How can I have the heart of a child and yet be as thick-skinned and have the fight of a badger in the wilderness? Okay? So you're going to see why I use these analogies, but this is on my Into All Truth website, this article, and so you can go ahead and take a look at it if you want to use these scriptures for prayer and meditation and study, to do further study on this. And so let's get into this, because we all want to enter the kingdom of heaven as we are now in end times. And as I've said in my videos, at this time we are all being measured, family. We are being measured. And so as we are being measured for the temple of Yahuwah, we want to be tough yet tender in this wilderness. Let's get into this study. Now, in my life, I've been given very many gifts by Yahuwah, but when you're gifted, is that changing your character? Not necessarily. And so I've said to Yahuwah, like, I would prefer to have the gift of peace and love above all, even above prophesying, knowledge, wisdom, all of those things. That's really my prayer. And, prophecy is the gift that we're supposed to desire most out of all the gifts and talents, right? So, because Yah says that love is the most essential thing. That's the greatest gift. It's love. And we have that from Yahuwah in the end. So we know that 1 Corinthians 13:13 says that faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love, shall remain in the very end. So when we are meditating on our character and living life and teaching the word, Rachel, so I'm going to be ministering to myself all through this, we have to seek only these things, because only these things will remain. And only these things give us peace and joy and make life worth living. So how do we remain tough yet tender-hearted enough to bear the trials and tribulations? Ephesians 4:2-3 says, be completely humble and gentle, and be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. All right. So, but of course, you guys, this doesn't mean unity outside of truth. There's a lot of Hebrews Israelites in the movement who just agree with consensus, especially, in the camps and stuff, on what truth is. And that's what the Gentiles do. That's what their history is, entirely lies agreed upon. So the truth is the truth regardless. He is actually a person. He is Yahusha. And so how shall we enter into the kingdom? Through Yahusha, obviously, through the truth. And so we have to, as I showed you above, and I'll read through the whole scripture here, harden not our hearts in the day of the provocation. As in the day of the provocation when they were in the wilderness, the day of temptation in the wilderness. We're going to go through it again. When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works for 40 years, wherefore I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their hearts. This is about the heart, circumcision of the heart. And they have not known my ways. So swear I in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living Elohim, but exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of Mashiach if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. While it is said today, if ye will hear his voice again, harden not your hearts. So this is as in the provocation, repeating it again for emphasis. For some when they had heard did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses. Okay, but with whom he was grieved for 40 years? Was it not them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? And to whom sware he that they should not enter his rest, but to them that believed not? So we see they could not enter in because of unbelief. So there's a connection between faith and the hardening of the heart. So that's why faith, hope, and love and remain. So unbeliever faithfulness is connected to the hardening of the heart, and this is why we have to walk by the Ruach, or the spirit of Abba, in relationship with him. And the Hebrew word Abba, or Ahaba, is love. Okay, so that is the thickest skin that you can possibly have. He who dwells in the shadow of the Almighty, the shadow is the image in the Hebrew, dwells in the secret place of the Most High, and this is where nothing can harm you. I've done so many teachings on this because it was a great revelation Yahuwah gave me. You become unstoppable. Praising Yahuwah helps us remain in his love and presence. So this is how you confront the thin skin that is rooted in offense and self-centeredness. And that is to know you are loved, and that keeps you childlike. Let me correct that. How you confront the thin skin rooted in offense and self-centeredness. You know that you are loved, and that keeps you childlike. All right, so here is Matthew 18. It says, verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So this is where we find that we have to enter in. We must have the humility of a child, love, peace, and tenacity. There's also another creature, of course, who has the toughness characteristic, and that is the badger. And you say to yourself, what? Such an unclean animal? You may ask, but the badger's skin covers the table of the presence. Let's deep dive into what the word says about being tough, tenacious, and tenderhearted so we can submit to the Ruach and enter the kingdom of heaven. And also, I really encourage you, family, to use these scriptures in prayer. Okay? So I'm going to read this whole verse because it's very important. It was just a revelation to me after I, did Pesach, and then as I am doing now, I am fasting up until Shavuot, trying to do at least 1 to 3 days a week of fasting. All right. And so I did a 3-day fast last week, and Yah just really showed this to me. He convicted me so much about this. So, whereby we are given unto us is given exceeding and great promises, that by these ye might be partakers of the divine nature. What is that? Dwelling in the image of Yahuwah. That's what the shadow is. It is his image. We see through a shadow glass darkly. We want to awaken in his likeness, in his image. This is Arukah. So how do we partake in that divine nature, dwell in his image? Having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust, and besides this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, which is morality, right? According to righteousness in the word, and to virtue, knowledge, and to knowledge, temperance, and to temperance, patience, and to patience, godliness, and to godliness, brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness, love, which is charity here, you see? So kindness, love, patience, moral virtue, knowledge, and diligence. All of these things dwelling, for if these things be in you and abound, they make you that ye shall neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Yahuwah. Notice here it is, our Yahuwah, Yahusha Mashiach. Okay? But he that lacketh these things is blind and cannot see afar off, and hath forgotten that he was purged from his old sins. Wherefore, the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you shall what? Never fail. You shall never fail if you do these things. Okay, so for me, I want to do these things, but yet my flesh isn't willing. So humility is and keeping your faith in Yahuwah is the key to doing this stuff successfully. So let's get into more of it. Because I had not heard of this guarantee. I knew Yahusha was the guarantee, but this never fail. And the scripture says Yahuwah's love never fails. So you will never, other scriptures say, this says you will never fall, but the Sefer says it'll never fail. And so reading this was a miracle to me. It is a guarantee. If you trust in Yahuwah and the love and acknowledge those things, and temperance and godliness. Temperance is humility, meekness, sensitivity to the Ruach and the situation, patience, kindness. You won't fail ever. And this means that you win eternally. So Psalms 52:8 says, order your words aright, and you will be like a green olive tree in the house of Yahuwah. So that's like the two witnesses, right? The 1/3 remnant and the 144, that's Israel. So love is really the key to all of this. And so, we can get outside of offense, we can get outside of insecurity, which brings out the ego, by dwelling in that love. Knowing that we are loved, and then by loving others, knowing that love will come back to us. We're putting out what we want. We're pouring into others what we desire. So knowing all through the trials that the love of Yahuwah is there to strengthen you and break off things that are not of him. So how do we hold on to and give that love? So here's just some general scriptures, 6 of them. Pray for the love that surpasses all knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure with the fullness of Elohim. Okay? So you want to be filled to the fullness with our Creator's image, self, person, spirit. You put away wrath, because love is not easily angered. You guys know I struggle with. So it's like, why? Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This doesn't mean you pray for them to be blessed with a ton of money or a job promotion. It means you pray that Yah will work on their character to will and act according to his pleasure, and to see things as he does, and to see you as he does, and to see their situations as he sees them, so that they can be unburdened. Pray harder for strength and for Yah to deal with your enemies through blessing or judgment as he sees fit. The weaker your prayer life, the thinner our skin. All right. And the harder our heart. So pray for Yah to bless them with his righteousness and his view of things. We watch and pray so that we do not fall in the temptation, for the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. So we know that we pray that Yah will give us an answer or the solution, the works of righteousness by the Spirit in advance. The fruit of the Spirit is self-control. So we avoid selfish desires, which make us prideful and self-centered. Avoid excess in food and drink or fine clothing, cars, houses, hairstyles, cosmetics. Don't vent every thought, every word. Self-control. This goes for men and women, especially for women, for the latter, like not adorning yourself. So this article is going to, and this teaching is going to explore the broader strokes of being tough and tender. And then we're going to go more into the intricacies of interpersonal dealings, like really the fine points of it. Things you can say, things that you can do that allow you to check with Yah on things and let the Spirit work in the situation. So we're going to look at the little child and the badger first. And these are the two mentioned as tough and tender. And so I want to start with both Levi and David as a balance of this. Levi was set up as the priest over Israel from heaven. He had a heavenly ascension, and he was anointed to avenge the rape of Dinah, his sister, from heaven, according to the testament of the 12 patriarchs. Read it. And we know that the Torah says that he did this, and he and his offsprings became priests of the Holy of Holies and those who serve Yahuwah forever because of this. So was that peace? Was that really soft and mushy of him to go and murder the entire town of Shechem with Simeon? So this is a different picture. This is someone warring for the virtue, for the purity and morality of the woman, right? Which is the nation. The Levites also cut down Yasharel with the sword many times at the direction of Yahuwah because of their golden calf and mixing with the Midianite women. And David is said to have had a heart after Yahuwah, yet he was the greatest warrior and military leader of Israel and conquered the Philistines and land of Israel. So this shows us very clearly Levi had love and mercy for his sister, and so he warred against a whole nation of men. And David had a love for Yahuwah, and so he warred, and his people, and so he warred to obtain the whole nation of Israel. So we see tough and tender. The most important thing is to forgive our brethren and know we all have limitations in our understanding. We all have blind spots, and it's going to take until kingdom come to get rid of them. So to avoid becoming hard-hearted, we have to learn to forgive. The ability to forgive those who have hurt us is key to avoiding the development of a hard heart. We can't carry the weight of that burden or resentment or fear, because then we will just be weighed down. We won't be able to see our blessings. And so the ability to acknowledge our own failures goes hand in hand with practicing forgiveness. When you forgive someone, try to think of something you have done or are struggling with and overcoming that you have just been forgiven for. Okay? So this is why you were asking for forgiveness daily, because you're remembering you're a sinner. So when you're dealing with other people's sin, you remember that you're a sinner, so it's easier to forgive. All right? And it doesn't mean the other person hasn't done you something wrong, but it means you release it for Yah to deal with it. You're no longer carrying that burden, and it keeps your heart light and in good health. All right. And I struggle with, and I'm getting more and more victory over releasing and loving, many people who have hurt me or just, followed after strange gods or bad leaders or false teaching and prophecy for the sake of vanity, or they love to hold to teachings like polygamy. I've really struggled with this in my relationships with other Hebrews. But these are the trials that we're to praise Yahuwah in, so none of these things move us. Because, of course, I'm not always perfect with my mouth, right? I may say, not even realize I'm offending somebody when I say something at times. So, we all just have to walk in forgiveness. It's really all we can do. And we have to know whether or not the person's intentions, sometimes we can check, are their intentions bad or good? Did they just give me a compliment and say they really enjoyed or liked something about me, but made a correction or criticism, and is that why I'm offended? So Yahusha saves us in these situations when we're able to do this. Why? So when we praise him, whosoever offers praise glorifies Yahuwah, and to him that orders his conversation aright will I show the Yahusha of Elohim. So when we are forgiving, when we praise Yahuwah, all right, and when we speak correctly or deal correctly with people, then Yah will save us. Okay? Yah will save us. So when we're in a struggle, we have to praise. All right. And, and obviously we have to have love for our brothers, having purified our souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit to love brotherly without feigning. Love one another with a pure heart fervently. Honor all men. Love brotherly fellowship. Fear Elohim. Honor the King. So these are ways that we love our brothers and sisters. So these are the things that we can do. These are some of the practical things. I'm going to get more intricate, but here's some basic ones. Respect authorities. Do not revile even when wronged. All right. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and courteous, but also to the froward. For this is thankworthy if a man for conscience toward Elohim endure grief, suffering wrongly. All right. So do not envy others. It means that you can't see your blessings and gifts. So be grateful and count your blessings. As Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. He does allow situations and trials in your life, though he may not approve of or think necessarily what you're experiencing is good. All right. So you may be encountering a sinful, evil person. Trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. So Yahuwah does allow situations in your life, though the trial may mean enduring the sin of others. Trust he will use it for your good. Romans 8:28. Remember, Yahusha bore our iniquities, so we must bear those of others. We bear one another's burdens. And so this is how we fulfill the law of Mashiach. And if you think that you're something, you count yourself as nothing, right? Otherwise, you're deceiving yourself. And so you examine your own work. So examine yourselves. And this will keep you from pride. And then when you suffer, that also keeps you from pride. So basically, what I'm saying is that when you do well, celebrate, but don't become prideful because you're deceiving yourself. And remember, you're going to suffer. So when we suffer, that keeps us from pride. It keeps us soft, open, and humble. All right, so we know children are loving, innocent, forgiving, and persistent. They are resilient and hopeful. They love easily. And this is another way in which you can never fail. Now, because you should never take children for granted because they seem to be resilient, because we know once we grow up, then we have scars, right? So, but when we're in that state, Yah gives that to us. But what about the badger? Well, did you know the badger skin is generally black and white and covered the tabernacle of Yahuwah, even the very altar? And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue and cover it with a covering of badger skins and shall put to the staves thereof. Okay? So it was used for the tabernacle of Yahuwah to carry the tent of meeting fabric, the vessels of offering. It even provided shoes for the bride of Yah, who was Yasharel, Israel, when Yahuwah first called us in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as a nation. This is what Yahuwah said, I clothed thee also with embroidered work and shod thee with badger skin. And I girded thee about with fine linen and I covered thee with silk. So our feet were prepared with badger skins. So there's the badger. He's kind of cute. I think he's cute. I think he's cute. All right. So there's the cute badger. And he kind of looks, you can see like a cross between like a skunk and a mole. I think he's just so cute. And, you know, he looks like an unclean weasel. So why is not a clean animal like the ram skin or the linen or the wool used in and upon the tabernacle? So why would they use this guy? Okay, this kind of rodent-like creature inside the very tabernacle, in the inner part. All right. Well, why? Because the badger is thick-skinned, yet he is nimble. That means he's flexible. He can turn and twist with flexibility in a fight to the death and attack the vital organs. He can withstand the darts of the porcupine. He can fight the lion and the hyena and win, and they fear him. He can withstand, he's only about 30 pounds, okay? He can withstand the stings of a bee as he takes their honey, and even the scorpion as he eats it. He is not fearful of anything but the hyena, lion, and leopard, wild dogs, all respect, fear, and hesitate to fight with him. Though he can defeat any enemy in a death battle, he will wisely walk away from a fight. So he's not, they try to portray him as like he's hunkering for a fight, a battle. But if you actually watch videos of him, you'll see a lot of people kind of, you know, picking at him to see if he's going to fight, not actually diving in and fighting him, right? But picking at him, and he will walk away from the battle. So he's flexible. He's not trying to fight, but if you fight him, he can kill you. So this really important thing is the badger is immune to the bite of the serpent. He is smaller than many snakes, and so is the lamb, by the way. The lamb will do what the badger does, go into a coma. So sheep are immune too. He is smaller than many snakes and can even defeat the boa constrictor. When bitten by the serpent, the icon of Satan, he simply passes out and goes into a 3-hour coma and then revives. So basically, when dealing with his worst enemy on the earth, he submits, dies, and rises again, and then scrambles away, no problem. In fact, if he's just killed the snake, which he usually does in the fight, when he wakes up, he eats it. Then he goes on his way. So, you know, Israel's going to devour their enemies in the end when Yahushua comes on the clouds with the army. So he's the picture of resilience. He's feared and respected. Most videos you find about him, he wisely, like I said, walks away from foolish battles, but is not overcome. So one of the keys to being tough and tender is to appreciate your blessings, understand your favor, that beauty lies in charity and love. Ahaba or ahava is the Hebrew word for love. So it's Yahuwah, right? Consider the greatest gift and the last 3 things that will remain in eternity: faith, hope, and love. And we love because Yahuwah first loved us. Again, he allows us to come to him to request forgiveness for sins daily, right? And he asks us to forgive our brother 7 times 77 because he's what? Loving. So, and because, you know, until the day we die, we can go for forgiveness, you know, but we shouldn't be willfully sinning. So Matthew 18 says that we have to ask our brothers to forgive us, or if we've offended them, to make it right, or to bring others to hear the matter. So we see this is a manifestation of balance. Okay? So we're called to be slow to anger and to overlook an offense. But the offense in all of these cases must be dealt with, but not ignored in the renewed covenant. Okay? The renewed covenant or New Testament. That standard is actually higher in the New Testament because there's more laws. Okay? So this is balance. This is the true good news. So our brothers, they do have to ask for forgiveness. right? And we forgive them 7 times 70 times, right? 490 times. But sometimes and many times we just have to be the bigger person and forgive. But if it becomes too much of a burden, we can separate ourselves, remove ourselves from them, not deal with them. But we always have to have forgiveness in our hearts towards them so we don't get bitter. And so let's look at how Yahuwah clothed Israel when he first found Israel to get ideas about how to be tough and tender. So when Abraham was found by Yahuwah, he and Sarah were living like Canaanites. Okay, so all the sons of Shem were serving Nimrod and the Egyptians and Canaanite gods too. And this is why Rachel and Sarah suggest concubines to their husbands, because Canaan was the first to have 2 wives, to commit polygamy and adultery. And so Abraham's father is also literally an idol maker. So their conduct and habits from living among the Canaanites, are no example for us. So Yah patiently let them come out of that sin, and he endured their sin as they were living among the Canaanites. But his law tells you what that sin is. So the Canaanites were so bad, they had taken Shem's land, and they're usurping conduct. And though Abraham was a Shemite, this is why Yahuwah says, okay, of Israel, of even Abraham, thy birth and thy nativity was of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother a Hittite. Now when I passed by thee, I looked upon thee, and behold, thy time was the time of love. And I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee, and entered into a covenant with thee, saith Yahuwah Elohim, and thou becamest mine. And then I washed thee with water. Yea, I thoroughly washed away thy blood from thee, and I anointed thee with oil. So this is going to show us some of the ways in which we are purified. Okay, it's an indicator. So the first thing he did was cover our nakedness. He made a blood covenant to clean us. He comes into relationship with us, of course, and washes us with water of the blood, and anoints us with oil as a covering as well. So what do? We seek Yahuwah in prayer, so relationship. We pray for forgiveness of our sin and submit to him. So as a husband, we submit to him. We ask for forgiveness, and so we are covered in the blood and washed by the forgiveness. We check our sin in the situation and do not sin in situations and trials that we're in. And we wash ourselves in the commands of Yahuwah's word, the blood of Yahusha, and the confession of our sin. Okay? So, and we're anointed with the Ruach and the name of Yah. We are married to him and called his. So that love in that covenant, in that marriage, is what we dwell in as our assurance, not our own selves. And so this oil is also the spirit that we walk in, okay, knowing we're chosen and loved. And we clothe ourselves in righteousness and peace, operating in the truth of the word. And we persevere in our battles because we have the strength through peace and righteousness and dwelling in Yahuwah, in his spirit and love. And then we eat the fine flour of the word by confessing the word. Okay? Because he gives Israel fine flour. You're going to see. Again, so, and just a reminder, the feet of Yasharal were shod with badger skin. Because what? The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. So Luke 15 and 22 says simultaneously that what? We walk in peace. This is how the king is described, Yahusha. Bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. So his feet are shod with peace, right? And this speaks of the honor and duty to preach the gospel, but they're also tough. So here's the how shall they preach except they be sent, as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them which preach the gospel of peace and bring tidings of good things. That's what Romans 10 and 15 says. So who are the ones who, it's really coming from the Psalm, I think it's, I can't remember if it's, I can't remember which book it's in, but it says how beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news. So you want to ascend to the mountain and kingdom of Yahuwah and have the feet of those who preach the good news in this tribulation. Is this a contradiction, though, between, having your feet shod with the toughness of the badger, but also with peace, right? No, it shows us that we must be resilient and thick-skinned, but also flexible like the badger, loving and peaceful in the battle for good. And we have to remember correction is love. So did Yahuwah not say in Hebrews 12 and 6 through 7 that he disciplines those whom he loves? Is not Israel in captivity due to his love and discipline? Because discipline is discipleship. All right, so the scripture is always about balance. Yahusha comes with both, with peace. Yet he says also, this is balance, withdraw your peace or shalom from those who will not receive the good news. Okay, so in Christendom, we tend to learn things are kind of carte blanche, like it just, your grace goes on forever, but there's always a limit. There's a limit for the grace to the Gentiles till the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. There was limit to the grace given to Israel until the 490 years when Yahusha came and was cut off in the middle of the week. That was their time. They had to receive him and before he was cut off. Okay? And they didn't. The nation did not. So they went into judgment. And so this is why he said, he sent out the disciples with a sword in twos to share what? The good news. So they got swords and they got good news. So they went with peace, but a sword at the same time. And this is why Yahusha said he has not come to bring peace, but a sword. So how do we reconcile this? Well, with balance, but with shalom, that's peace. So the pictographic symbol for the word shalom in Hebrew is written with Shin, Lamed, Vav, Mem. And so the Shin symbol right here actually looks like teeth. And then you have the Lamed, the staff of the leader, the Wa, which is the tent peg, and then Mem, which is the waters below, above, or the waters below, meaning chaos or nations. So basically, peace or shalom means to destroy the authority that binds to chaos. So the root word shalom means to restore, meaning replacing or providing what is needed in order to make someone or something whole and complete. So shalom is used to describe those of us who have been provided all of that that is needed to be whole and to break off any authority that would attempt to bind us to chaos. So we don't enable or agree with sin. We resist that with force as the disciples who carried the sword while sharing the good news. So you have every right to be balanced in every situation. So when you think about the teeth in shalom, you can think about the lion or the badger. Badger will hold on to that food, all right? And taking hold of the chaos to restore peace. So either, walking away from a battle or destroying the enemy in the same way that a sword does, all right? And so also, obviously we're receiving this kingdom as a little child. And so let's return to the way that Yahuwah clothed Israel when he found her. If you'll notice, we already said the king is brought forth. He's clothed. He's got a ring on his hand. Same as Israel when she's found. She's decked with ornaments. Bracelets are put upon her. Chain on her neck. Put a jewel in your forehead, earrings on your ears, a beautiful crown on your head, and you were decked with gold and silver. Thy raiment was of linen and silk embroidered work, and you did eat fine flour and honey and oil, and you were exceedingly beautiful, and thou didst prosper into a great kingdom, and thy renown went forth among the heathen of thy beauty, for it was perfect through my comeliness, which I had put upon thee, saith Elohim. So it is Yahuwah's comeliness, his beauty, his loveliness that anoints us and makes us beautiful and gives us life. So we can never take credit for the things he gives us or does for us. And it's not always a sign that he's pleased with us, that we are all gifted and all of these things. It's our fruit that is the sign, right? So, but to stay away from ego, we just always remember that we are beautiful, loved, and desired and chosen of Yahuwah. His love is the sign and our assurance, so we don't have to feel insecure. And we can know that we've been in Peter, 2 Peter 1 and 3, given everything for life and godliness. Okay, just like the jewelry and clothing that he gives us, and the objects of silver and gold used to serve in the temple. And Ephesians 2 and 10 says, we are Yahuwah's handiwork, created in Yahushua Mashiach for good works that Elohim has prepared in advance that we should live in them. So this is a good prayer to repeat to ourselves daily when the enemy tries to whisper in our ear. Yahuwah prepared things in advance for us. So it's just a matter for us to walk in them and embrace them by the Spirit. It's nothing to do with us. All right? And it's really good for us to say it out loud, because then it becomes substance in our lives. It becomes substance in our lives. Okay? When we confess these words. So balance is always to confess more scriptural words of good than bad, to outweigh in prayer and confession all negativity with confessions of the good word of Yahuwah. So rather than dwelling on the negative, dwell on the positive. Unless you're somebody who's overly optimistic and has no perspective on your own sin. If you run around talking about how great you are and everything, and you never sin, and people think you're so nice, then you probably need to focus more on how not to sin. But this is how we eat the fine flour of the word of Yahuwah. We speak the words, we eat the words of his scripture, and we speak them over our lives so that we can activate them in our lives through the word sound that gives us power. All right. And so this is how we put on the righteousness of Yahusha, that Yahuwah has put upon us with his love. We become beautiful like him, and we seek the beauty of his face, as in Psalm 27, the one thing that we ask for, the one thing that we seek. So balance is the key, because if we don't understand our gifts come from Yahuwah's love, balanced with humility and trials, we become prideful and vain. So look at Yasharel and find out that we were so blessed by Yahuwah as a nation that we became vain as Yasharel, and Satan also did. Okay? So we see the enemy also, that's why the angels fell, for the same reason. So Yah says, but you trusted in your own beauty and played the harlot because of your renown, and poured out thy fornications on everyone that passed by. His it was, so you gave it to everybody. So when we resort to vanity, we begin to slip and fall. That's ego, and we're not being loving, and we're hardened and cannot give or receive, because we're not the source of anything but obedience in what we've been given. Our obedience is our bowing down to enter into the door of heaven, to submit to Yahuwah, is what gives us our blessings. But if we don't do that, we become hard-hearted. Okay? So, but when we're humiliated, rather than feeling condemnation, this is what keeps us in balance when we're humbled. And knowing also that the scripture says there's nothing we experience that is strange to men in 1 Corinthians 10. Nothing new under the sun. So we can't take it personally. We have to understand it's humiliation that we all experience. Okay? And the worst thing you can do in this life is to suffer vainly, suffer these humiliations and lessons vainly, without succeeding in them. to bring forth the fruit of righteousness. So, as Second Esdras says, because as he's meditating on everyone who's going to go to hell in their futility, he's going to say, what about those of us who've lived and committed iniquity? We considered not that we should begin to suffer for it after death. And so then Yahuwah answers and says, this is the condition of the battle that every man that is born upon the earth shall fight, that if he be overcome, he shall suffer as thou hast said. But if he get the victory, he shall receive the thing that I say. So we don't want to suffer in vain, family. We want to suffer for the victory, because we're going to suffer no matter what. We're going to suffer no matter what. So the objective, this is how immature I was in the past, is not to avoid suffering. It's to avoid suffering foolishly. Don't make stupid mistakes. Don't go and do a bunch of drugs so you can suffer as an addict. No, but it's to not to avoid the trial or the suffering that comes from it, but to avoid suffering vainly. You want to get the victory in the trial that comes through the trial rather than to suffer vainly and die and go to hell. For when we lived and committed iniquity, we considered not that we should begin to suffer for it for death. And he answered me and said, this is the condition of the battle, which man that is born upon the earth shall fight. Okay, just saying that again. For there are places prepared for us in heaven as our reward, especially in the eternal presence of Yahuwah, even above the palaces. All right? So the suffering helps us to shed our sinful ways and trust Yahuwah more. All right? We don't want to regret being shut out of the kingdom and, be gazing in envy. This is one of the ways in which we will suffer if we don't enter into the kingdom. And we will suffer looking at the faces of them that have used abstinence, and their faces shall shine above the stars, above those of the angels. We don't want to be looking at that and we're in hell, or we know we're going to hell. So remember, Yahuwah is going to have mercy until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. All right? Family, go ahead to the website blog intoalltruth.net to read the rest of the article on the internal work of the badger, how to manage, just interpersonal situations moment by moment. So you can read the rest of the article online. Not sure if I'll do a video about it. We'll wait and see. I know you guys love to just get the truth. I really actually had so much peace after this Pesach, and I really felt like there was a huge change happening in me. I don't even know how to describe it from the eclipse, from the time of the eclipse. So, we'll see if that holds. Yah willing, I'm going to keep working on it and walking this stuff out, but I've had some really good experiences. And so I hope this is helpful to you, family. Anyway, fam, you let me know if you think the eclipse was real and what your thoughts are on it. On the multiple moons, multiple suns, firmament, and whether or not this is a fake sun we're experiencing. I'd love to have your thoughts. But please continue to support. Go to intoalltruth.net and sign up for membership, or just become a subscriber. Pick up the lifestyle book or the calendar so you can keep these appointed times. May Yah bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine on you. May he be gracious, lift the light of his countenance, and give you shalom.
Let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Let all of Yasharah, Yisrael, who love, worship, and praise Yahweh, give him thanks by saying Hallelujah.